Hey, awesomes. How's it going? Um, Thought I would take a few minutes. Promised you a wikiHow revisions video, if you will. So let's talk about that. So what I'm going to do here is kind of provide an overview of some basic, kind of like the top issues that I kind of saw with most of your the wikiHow assignments. Which this is, like I said, this is one of those ones that kind of takes a little bit of time. So that's why I've extended the deadline. And so thought I might provide a couple of these. I'm going to start off with a couple of examples here that we're going to look at done in the past, and just point out some things that I want you to be just kind of think about and be aware of, if that makes sense. So I pulled up this one. I noticed a lot of you, several of you are doing how to either make with food, especially. So stumbled upon. I know I'd used something about doing what was it, Oreo cookie cheesecake or something like that in the microwave. So I thought I would up my game here on this one. So this one's how to make peanut butter. And the one thing I want to point out, especially to anyone who's doing any recipes, while I'm not necessarily requiring you a quick summary, one thing that does seem to be consistent in a lot of the food ones is it always starts out with ingredients as opposed to having the ingredients at the end. So if you are making food or you are doing something like that, the standard kind of genre convention of the wikiHow seems to be the ingredients are kind of listed first. Okay. So while that might not be universal to if you're not doing one, if you're not making a food item where they are necessarily like the ingredients that you will need, et cetera, then pay attention to the following, and that is if you're doing parts or steps, whatever, make sure that your part comes up here to the top, right, and stays at the top. And then you'll also notice one thing that's very key is that you have step one listed right here. Starts off with a verb, right? Prepare the peanuts. It's an action word or action verb, if you will, right? Something specifically to do, and the notice of the picture is above. I know that getting the first picture to go on top, I know sometimes has been challenging, but we'll talk about that in a second. Okay. Notice that there's always a 2 or 3 sentence explanation as to what the verb phrase that you start off with, what to do, right? And then occasionally there'll be a bullet point to let you know something else of which to be aware, perhaps. And now you're on step 2, roast the peanuts. It says this is optional, and then it explains that, and then gives you the details here, utilizing the bullet points. So I'd like to just kind of point out, just kind of briefly, that every one of your steps need to have, this is where the kind of the level of complexity comes in. So regardless of what you're making or doing or whatever, make sure that you really think about your audience and telling them additional information that they need to know in these steps, as opposed to something that maybe is a tip or a warning, but maybe point out the details. So here's the roasting. Here's what it does. And then here's how to do it, right, in the bullet points. And again, notice that the picture is above the step. And this continues throughout. Here it is, the pulse the peanuts until they are ground. This should take just a few pulses for best results. Do this while peanuts are still warm, right? So you've got everything that you need to know to make these steps, to do these steps, right? Process your peanuts, right? And then there's an explanation. And then 5, scrape. At least 3 minutes, gives you some more details as well as a bullet point, right? And this is where we make sure that we provide enough information to our audience. So we're scraping the peanut butter again here. Notice again, the pictures are above the steps. Again, add salt and sugar to taste. Notice that each one of the steps still continues. Each one of the first says, first word is some sort of action word, something to do. All right, that's very standard in the convention. Add small quantities of brown sugar, molasses, or honey. Provides a detailed explanation, again, a bullet point. And then it's got a part 2. And this is where they do something interesting here, where the rest of the parts that you connect to something else on wikiHow of how to then use peanut butter for other things. So that's the part 2 of it. I wanted to focus on part 1, especially since we had so many of you that were doing recipes or how to make something. So here's how to wash your bike. It's not a recipe, right? This one here does have a quick summary, which seems to be a new standard convention to that. To wikiHow, I've noticed a lot of those are adding that. So if you add one, that's fine. If you don't, that's okay. Part 1, clean the drivetrain. Always clean your drivetrain. And then again, provides the detailed information about why you're performing step one. Elevate your bike. Here are the the reasons for that, or what you can do. And then use a rag to scrub. And again, notice that the pictures are above. Notice that after the bolding of the actual action phrase that you are providing, there's generally always 2 to 3 sentences and a bullet point, or 2 semi-regularly on most of these, right? Providing that extra detail, right? Oh, here's wipe. Purchase a chain cleaner for this, okay? Then lube, right? And then it's got a link here. I guess there's another step if you want to know a little bit more about that. But look, notice the detail that's being provided there for the wikiHow. All right, so and so forth and so on. I think you're getting the idea of the steps, starting with an action verb, and the pictures being above each step. And this one's a little bit longer, but after the community Q&A. Right, there's always like tips and warnings, right? So if there's anything other in addition to what was just discussed or spoken about in the actual instructions themselves, you'll notice that they have additional things that you might want to think about for maybe other scenarios, perhaps, okay? So those are some things to think about when it comes to the wikiHow. So always be looking at maybe others that are similar to yours, perhaps, and making sure that you're, this is kind of way really think about the formatting. We're also thinking about content. We have the introduction. If it's a recipe, make sure that you're including the ingredients. Make sure that your pictures are above every step. Make sure every step is thorough, detailed, beyond just the action phrase or the action verb phrase, if you want to call it that. You say, replace, blah 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 blah. Mix, whatever, right? And then provide 2 or 3 sentences of details, and then maybe a couple of bullet points to really make sure that we're helping our audience in performing this task successfully. Okay. All right. So that's a kind of a general overview of revisions for the wikiHow assignment that you are all working on. So if you have any questions about that, if I come across any other kind of details, of course, always. I went through as I did over the weekend, and while I watched all of them, while I viewed all of them, I watched screencasts. Viewed. Make sure you keep the in use on there until we're done. All right, then you can take the in use off and go from there. But keep the in use on there until we're done for another week and a half or so, or I guess it'll be 2 weeks now. Okay. All right, guys. You have a great week. I'll be back with more talking about the things we're doing this week. But this is just for the wikiHow revisions and things to think about. So I bid you all a good week. We'll talk soon. Bye.